As mentioned at the end of my last video, I discussed that I was going to be building the B-Cody system, which is this little device here now. I finally got it complete. There's some, it's not supposed to be a gap here. It's kind of a work in progress for me because I've been kind of taking it apart and tinkering around with it a lot, which I don't think you're really supposed to do, but that's what I've been doing, so I haven't really been tightening it down all the way just for like testing. It's not in alignment right now. I had it in alignment, so when I took some of the pictures that I'm going to be showing throughout the video, actually this will probably just be a really short one just talking about what it is. So this is just a clip-on thermal device. It's home, DIY, so you make it yourself. And what it does is like it clips on, it's a periscope style, and it periscopes into the night vision from the front, and it gives you a thermal overlay. I'm just going to give over some rough specs of how it took me to build it and like all my stuff that I did. The device itself, including the thermal camera and all the electronics on the inside, was about $396.50. I don't know how the prices are now. I haven't really looked at how that changed, but with the way things are, I imagine it's a little bit different price now. Could be a little bit more. I think a lot of the electronics and stuff were kind of getting restricted. I bought this a couple of months ago. I bought all the components, and I personally had some issues with the screens, the VGA like screens in here that go into the periscope. But I had some issues with the screens, so if you ever have an issue, like my screen was like turning white for no reason, and there was no markings or anything on it. Like it was a standard screen, it just wasn't working. But that is the problem with a little bit of a DIY electronics. You always you're gonna have issues, and you're not gonna know how they're gonna work if you do have an issue. Well, in theory you'll know, but that was an issue I ran into, was the screens. But so you've got a really simple system. There's a very simple menu system. You can scroll, and this is the display, power on, and the display brightness. Then I think it does kind of work as brightness as well. And this is also like a brightness thing, or that may just be like the wiring. This may not actually be brightness anymore. I don't know. They're kind of making a lot of different revisions throughout it. If you do follow it, I think they're kind of a lot like changing the electronics and everything. But then this is this is also brightness up or down, and this also has like a menu function. It's just a little bit loose because I didn't tighten it down all the way. But then you got the buttons here. This button is for also more settings and inverting everything and changing all the displays. But so it's got a little thermal camera right there, and this cover that you can print out. So that's what the thermal camera view. So it's basically like a side profile vision of the thermal, and so you're able to look through, and it displays it on a screen. It took me, I don't know if I mentioned it before, it took me roughly 3 hours to make. Like I said, I had some issues, so in reality it took like months, but it was 3 weeks of actual work within it. I had, like I said, the problems with the screens, and that required me to buy a new one and have it shipped from China. So that took a very long time. I had a lot of different, all the buttons and everything were very expensive, depending on whether you buy them fake. And another thing I had an issue with was, another one I had an issue with was this USB-C power supply. It was just, for some reason, the first one I got was not like passing power through. So that's another thing to look out for. If it's these components, when purchased from China, are a little bit so you do have to make sure that you check every component, and you may get something that's just faulty, so you got to be prepared for that. So don't be trying to build this directly before you need it, because it will probably not be ready initially when you first think so. But I printed this out of PETG CF that I bought. That's not included in the price. I didn't include any other 3D printing filaments or anything like that, but I did include like the elastic bands and everything, and the screws. I think it's a pretty useful system. I know that a lot of the clip-on thermal devices are very expensive. Comparatively, this one is relatively cheap at the $400 price point, which brings my total night vision system here to, as I purchased it, it was $3,500. So plus the 400 brings it up to almost 5,000. Yeah, almost 5,000. I had to check the math. Almost 5,000. So that includes a thermal, which you can't really get even. Granted, it is a little bit more expensive, like a fusion binocular. It's a lot more expensive than that. The cheapest ones of those are probably running about 5,000 for like the Chinese RAX ones. So this system was a little bit cheaper than that, but again, you got to do a lot more work with it. The actual nods and stuff, and as said in my previous video, were all pre-built for me through customnightvision.com. And then the Cody I had to build myself. So that is a little bit more of a difficult thing to do, especially if you're not used to soldering, because some of the components on there are quite small. Like you do have to solder onto like an ESP32 board and then slide it into like a slot that was made for it, and it has to be very specific. But I'm confident. If I could do it, anybody could do it. And then another addition I got were these little operate low profile lens protectors for my ocular lenses, because I was worried that they were going to get damaged or something like that if I had them up and something flew at them, like a BB projectile, or I guess like if a grenade or something like that went off and I was wearing my glasses, my Wiley X's, if I was wearing these, and something bounced off them, or bounced off these lenses, came from the side, bounced off and hit it in the back, I was worried it might cause damage. But so far that hasn't been an issue. Granted, I have just put these on, so if it ever is an issue, I will hopefully not know. Although I don't think these are actually like ANSI rated, but they would, I'd imagine, in theory, they'd stop any sort of like glancing blow. A direct shot, I'd imagine, would go through, especially if it's something high powered or a fast projectile. So that is it for the upgrades, I believe, on this actual system that I've got. Although actually I got something else to talk about, which is something I designed myself. Put these over here. For the fast helmet is, let's see if I got one somewhere around here that I could show. That's good. It's a VIP IR helmet mount. Unlike the ones from the actual VIP IR place, it's a little more substantial. This also is printed in PETG-CF. So that's just something cool. If anybody wants the files for it, let me know. I'll see if I can figure out a way to give them to you. It just runs on two M.2 screws that go through the center, and it provides like a front loop as well. There's a little hook there, so that you could tie it down like I have it tied down, so it won't fly off in case if it does fly off, it'll hopefully like remain at least a little bit connected. So that's new. And I've also got something else new that I haven't tested either of these really substantially yet. But a little, this is a thing, I forget what it's called. It's like what's the Heligon? I don't know. It's one of the different IR strobe companies, although this is a fake one. Because I always figure, why not try to test a fake thing out if it's really cheap. Like this is like $7 or something like that. And it's got all the different visible strobes of any specific color you want. And it's also got IR. See that? Yeah, little IR there. Similar to the VIP IR, although I'd imagine this one is a lot less durable when it comes to that. But I like the form factor of this over the VIP IR, just because the VIP IR is like the little knob on top. I cannot, for the life of me, do that under pressure if it really requires it. Like this one, it's just a switch on the back to 2 or 3, depending on what you want to do, strobe or solid. Whereas the other one, it's like you have to twist it, and then even then, depending on the model, so like if you have like a different model of VIP IR as compared to someone else, and you're used to using yours, you'll have to deal with like the change in the amount of like different modes you have. So you'll have to click it however many times. It's different. There's new modes in the other one, so you'll actually end up like doing something crazy, like turning on a vis light when you don't want to. So I like this to have the little positive click on the front or the back. I know the rear one does as well, to where you won't accidentally go into the opposite mode as opposed to what you want to do, instead of needing to just like twist it like 9 times to get into Viz mode if you want to use Viz mode, or to get to use IR mode. It's the first 3 settings or something like that, but then again, that depends on the model. So this, I think, is a lot more intuitive of a system. I think it's a lot more granted, this is a clone, so whoever they stole this from is the one who actually came up with the idea, but I think that's a really good and solid idea over the VIP IR. But I do like the VIP IR in terms of its like durability, and in terms of how long it could like actually like run. I've had to run like 12 plus hours in a row with no problem from a strobe. So I know that like this is probably used a little bit more. I think it's got more LEDs and stuff and more electronics and components, which just lead to it running for longer, or lead for it dying faster. And then another little new updated system I've got here is the Motorola's I was talking. I think I've mentioned these and I've shown these quite a few times in my videos. I don't know about this one yet. This one's newer to me. It's the Model 1.5 Motorola XTS. But I was finally able to get front panel programming working on this to an extent. And then I was able, on this one, I think it's pretty cool, pretty neat system. Although I would recommend, if you are going to be going for the like Motorola's, or you do want like a tactical radio to some extent, and you're going to be going down the path of a Motorola or the path of a few of the other ones as well. They're all very similar in how they do this. is there's the different models that have different features. I know for sure Motorola is like this. Other companies might be a little bit more like liberal with what they give you per unit. But so like the Motorola, like this is, like I said, model 1.5 here and a model 3. So the Model 3 has a full keypad. I would recommend honestly getting a Model 2. I got this model 1.5 because it was insanely cheap, and I wanted to get another one to have for this system so I can have it like interoperate with all of them. And not, I also kind of wanted to test that without the buttons. I do have a Model 2 somewhere, but this I wanted to see what it was like with no buttons on it, because this I like personally this style, I think, for going in the side pouch of a plate carrier. Like I have this one is what I would put in my LBT, just in the side little radio pocket right at the end of the cummerbund, and it fits there. Really just top knob is all you need to operate to change your channels and zones and stuff to get to wherever you need to go to. You don't really need to be fiddling around with your power or your buttons. You shouldn't really have to be worried about that. Whereas if you have a system like this, you're more likely to like, this could be a useful thing for someone who does have to mess around with their power or their front panel, like the front panel program things. Like this is, it's a neat system. Hold on, I gotta, yeah. So I think it is definitely a cool system to have the buttons, but I don't think you need the buttons really. But the buttons I would recommend getting are the Model 2 buttons, which is like the numpad and everything, because that gives you access to all these features, like the different, like you can go to more zones if you wanted to do different zones and stuff like that. You can go to the different zones through this, and you could also have like 4 zones. Like this one I haven't had programmed yet for 4 zones because it's a newer system. But you could do your zones. You could also have more channels then, because you can go above the 16 that the knob would let you at the top. So you can have more zones or more channels within each zone. Whereas in this radio, if I wanted to go to a channel, like let's just say 17, I just can't do it. There's no button unless I program one of these buttons to be able to do that, which I have yet to do. So really, I think it's a cool thing to have these type of radios because they are so cheap and because you can just slip them into anything. I think that it is a very useful though to have those 3 buttons up top, because you can do, like I said, power adjustments. You can do zones and channels more than you can do on the Model 1. But if you just want something simple that you can program, hand out to somebody, and they can just read, that's why also I like this Model 1.5 over the Model 1, is the Model 1 has no screen at all. So unless you set up channel announcements, which on a XTS 2500 is very difficult, or you look at this little tiny number up here to determine what channel you're on, it's really difficult to tell what channel you're on. So I recommend at least going for the Model 2 or, I mean, the Model 1.5. I wouldn't get the Model 1 just because the no screen would throw me off. And I know that like when it's in a pouch like that is really all you have is a little tiny knob at the top anyway. But I think that it's easy. It's just so much easier to, if you ever really want to know what channel you're on, or you're ever confused as to what channel you're on, you take this out of a pouch and you look at it, and you're able to just tell by looking at the screen. And you're able to tell what zone you're on, you're able to tell their settings and everything. And also recently figured out that you can change the flash code of these radios. I know I didn't really show you that, but you are able to change the flash code on these radios without necessarily having Motorola's involvement. I won't get into too much detail into how to do that, but if you do go to Google, there is a chance. There is a chance if you go on Google and you search like Depot software, you could figure it out. So that really opens up the capabilities for these radios. These ones at least had the secure hardware encryption, the UCM module on their keyboards, which allowed me to do encryption on both of these, AES 256-bit. I've yet to get a keyloader for them, but I am looking towards that. I'm looking to get a keyloader sometime in May. So I'll figure that out when I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But I've heard that's another step of complexity, because these are, again, insanely complex radios. I was figuring out how to program these and stuff like that, and all the different settings and menus. It is very similar now to what like a Baofeng digital radio looks like within the settings, as in it's like a windowed menu. But each individual setting doesn't make any sense, and it is not what you think it would be. Like even within the Baofengs and stuff, because I programmed with those I programmed, it's been like, oh, channel mode. You go to your channels, you select them all, and you can just input the channels text in directly into there. And then within that setting, it lets you change, like if you wanted to do digital mode, or if you wanted to do analog mode, or the power level, or like all these other different steps within them. But with these radios, it's like a whole thing. Like you have to set the personality to be a specific thing, and then you have to set within the personality. You change a lot of the settings of that so like you could just assign a personality to a channel. But then that opens up a whole other step of complexity. I won't really get into it too much because this isn't a radio video, but that is just another update from me with all my different equipment and my little knowledges I'm learning as I get more into this hobby.